Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 49. Have we got a treat for you? In this week's episode, Mr. Akos and I are going to be diving deep into something that is a hot topic, not only across the celebrity space, but also across general health and wellness. And as concerning as some people have made it out to be, we're going to come at it and break it down. We're going to give you the so what of it. We're going to explain to you some of the implications, our thoughts. And you're probably sat there going, Dean, just tell me what bloody topic you're talking about. Today, we are going to be shaking up the health industry and talking all about Ozempic, Wegovy, and Mounjaro. And you're probably sat there going, what the fuck are they? What on earth did you just say to me? Well, these are currently a lot of weight loss, fat loss medications that are being thrown across the industry. And for our goal, it's to tell you whether or not today it's a magic pill and if it is your ticket to success or is it another fleeting trend. And that's the concept that we're going to be breaking down and the results that they deliver. Is it worth the hype? Let's find out. But before we do, Akos, brother, how are we?
Very well, thank you, mate. Looking forward to this one. The magic thing about this one is me and Dean haven't given we have not exposed our thoughts on this at all. So this could be like the first live proper fight.
It could, to be fair,
it could literally be, let's go. Gloves are off.
This could be bad. This could be the very first lovers tiff that we have on podcast. And you're all going to be subject to this. But listen, I think it's important that we start this topic with that simple kind of question. And it's where is this rise of weight loss drugs coming from? Why is this such a thing? Why is it a topic? Why is it a consideration? Why are they being wildly adopted? And I'm keen to hear your thoughts before we dive deep, Akos. What are your thoughts on it?
Mate, as soon as it gets into mainstream media, we know we're in trouble. I think mainstream media, we are in trouble. My wife doesn't know have a clue about it, and she was watching some crappy Women About Houses. I don't know what's it called. What are these programs that people watch, man?
Is
like,
it
how do they not watch? No, not even loose women. It's the realtors in Florida or something. They sell houses that are millionaires.
Oh,
what's that one?
Like,
right.
It's like
you know what I'm talking about.
Agents of Miami and shit like that. Yeah.
This is how bad we are. We don't even know that. Like, everyone's screaming the name down our podcast right now. Like, why do you not know this program? And like, when they're talking about it in series programs like that, all the women are like, we don't go to the gym. We just take Wegovy, we just take Mounjaro. You've got Hollywood stars saying, why would you ever go to the gym? And why would you do all of that when you can just take this drug? As soon as that sort of mainstream media comes out like that, we're in trouble. So that's the rise, isn't it? It's like, it's in the mainstream. We've got Hollywood stars talking about it. We've got all sorts of people raving about it. No one really telling you the ins and outs of what it is, how it's affecting you, what the side effects are, what the risks are. It's just amazing. You lose loads of weight. You don't have to do any training. I mean, who doesn't want to take that? Flipping hell, give me some now. Jab me up. Let's go.
Mate, you laugh. But even you're saying that, right? And I think this is a really key, important message that we can discuss here, is that we're talking about something that if we look globally across where we are right now in advances in technology, in where people are considering going to places, the differences in smart technology, the differences in how quick we can get things, the responses to delayed and immediate gratification, it's actually increasingly being viewed as an acceptable tool because of, let's face it, the current climate that we're living in, the biopsychosocial challenges that people face. And for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, when we talk about these biopsychosocial factors, it's everything to do with their social environment, it's everything to do with their biology and their physiology, and it's everything to do with their psychology and their psyche. So if you put all of that into a combination pot and a big fucking bucket, that's a big bucket of shit that people have to deal with. And in that big bucket of shit, people want to get out of that big bucket of shit as quick as possible. And that is, in effect, the rise of that instant gratification need and desire by so many people. Like, it's just, for me personally, why's it happened? Where's it come from? The mainstream media, you could not be more right if you tried on that. Like, if you're watching the fit, the famous, and the wealthy talk about something that got them to X, guess what the mainstream media are going to do? And also the companies are going to do. They're going to lean on that sponsorship. They're going to lean on those appraisals. They're going to get people who are in those positions to support the drugs that we're going to be talking about, Ozempic, Wegovy, and Mounjaro, because those three things, and more specifically around what we discussed earlier on before the podcast about Wegovy, there's going to be some interesting concepts, I think, that we bring up. And I think what you all need to understand is, why is there controversy if you're listening to this podcast? Why is there so much controversy about somebody doing weight loss drug? Why is it? Is it because it's a shortcut? Whether it's a legitimate shortcut or a medical advancement, we don't know that yet. And that's the piece that we want to try and come in at, is what do we know right now? And how can you be almost in the safest possible place when it comes to even considering this shit? Or conversely, actually, we don't want people to do that. We've got a bias, right, Akos? We both got a bias. We want people to take the dietary, habitual, lifestyle change related process. Why? Because there's so much power, not just in the weight loss. I think the quicker we get out of this mindset of just losing weight all the time, which I appreciate for some people, that's really important, and get into the concept of living healthily and actually going through hardship and resilience, you're living your life for fucking purpose and for a reason. It's not just centered on, okay, my identity is that I'm fat. My identity is that I'm overweight. I now need to change my identity as quick as possible, and I want to be somebody slim. And I appreciate that, and we both appreciate that. We're not completely emotionally fucking challenged to not have that discussion, are we?
No, not at all. It's such a deep. It's more than just what are the implications of this drug? What can I get out of it? It's so much deeper than that, isn't it? Why do people feel like they need it? Is the biggest question. Why do they feel like they're failing in those habitual changes that they need to make? Failing in the processes of doing things that will make you feel better as well as lose a bit of weight. You know, why are they failing, and why are we failing with people going down the normal route of looking at nutrition, making nutrition quality better, choosing foods that are going to, fuel you, make you feel great, and not fatigue you, make you feel tired, make you feel sluggish? Why are we looking at just the end result of losing a bit of weight? And it's such a prevalent subject, because it seems like everyone's talking about it, and everyone's in this position where they're like, why is it so hard to do these things without? Is it that hard? And does this solve anything long term, or is it another one of those like fleeting things that we comes in, solves certain problems, and then we get the same problems back very, very soon? Exactly. I mean, that's the thing that it's going to be interesting.
With it as well. That is exactly where I'm at with it as well. So let's go into what they are, team, because you probably all sat there going, what's Ozempic, what's Wegovy, and kind of what's Mounjaro? And I think the first thing that we need to look at is we'll do a bit of a combination here. First of all, Ozempic. Do you want to start us off with where the hell Ozempic even came from? I was like, where did it start from? Why was it even created?
Yeah, so of what I know and what I remember, and we've done a lot of research over the last couple of years, but then it's like trying to collate all the information that we've done over the few years. I heard about Ozempic probably 3 to 4 years ago, quite a long time before most people heard of Ozempic. Ozempic is the brand name for a drug called semaglutide, and it's a GLP-1 agonist, GLP-1 hormone, and it's GLP is obviously glucagon-like peptide, and it basically mimics glucagon in the body. So it slows down digestion, reduces appetite, promotes feelings of fullness, and basically you're just not hungry. Okay, but the goal was to administer for diabetic patients, so type 2 diabetes in particular, to drive down insulin responses, to drive down all the negative effects of type 2 diabetes. They didn't make it for a reason of losing weight. They didn't really realize it was one of those, oh gosh, it does this as well.
Yeah.
So they administered it to type 2 diabetes patients to work on insulin resistance and all the insulin problems. They started seeing people losing a lot of weight taking this drug.
Yeah.
They then obviously...
Just to give people some context there, like with Ozempic, one of the studies they had, and I've got this written in front, one of the studies in front of me here, they had over, I think it was we had a 68 week trial, and people that were on semaglutide on this lower dose, this Ozempic one, and we'll come on to Wegovy in a moment, this had 14.9% drop in their overall body weight, highlighting the effectiveness of why something like this is administered to somebody or has been given as an off-label weight loss treatment, although that wasn't always the goal. The goal of Ozempic was to support people with diabetes. I think that's got to be the party line that we kind of start with. Says, well, where the fuck did it come from? Who found out that this was the thing that we need to jump into? Well, going back to our point, it was initially started because it came from, and again, which all we need you to understand in this is it's kind of like closing the garage door on your fucking hormones a little bit. That's probably an easy way to describe it. It's closing the garage door. It's slowing down digestion. Basically, we're stopping light getting in. It's stopping weather getting in, all of the food, stopping all of the water. And I'm very, very, very much kind of plain sailing this. But what it is in effect of doing, it's stopping all of those cues that we often associate with hunger, which is what we've just discussed about why it was so useful for diabetics, right? And then all of a sudden, we then have this second product that came out, which again, you and I just very briefly tapped on this prior to what we were starting about. But this is a much, much, much higher dose of semaglutide, and where those dosages are coming from. Do you want to tap on that a little bit? Because what people don't need to understand, there's a big difference here, right?
Big difference. I think the biggest thing to understand, again, firstly, is these aren't weight loss drugs. They don't. So the amount of times people talk to me and say, "Oh, what does that weight loss drug do? How does it make you lose? How does it make you burn fat?" It doesn't do anything to make you lose weight. It makes you not eat. Okay. That's it. That's all it does. It reduces your intake because you're not hungry. You're literally not hungry. Now, anecdotal, James Smith put on a post about him doing it for 2 weeks. James Smith said he'd run it for 2 weeks. He literally just forgot to eat. How do you forget to eat? All I do is think about food, for fuck's sake. How does the guy, how do you forget to eat? He just was like, oh shit, I haven't eaten anything today. He lost 4.6 kilos. 6.4 kilos in 2 weeks. He just forgot to eat. You know, like you're just walking around, you're like, I could do with a little bit of something there. He did not have that chemical receptor to eat. So it doesn't make you lose any weight. It stops you from eating. I think that's the first thing that people need to understand. And that's a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah,
obviously,
there's safety implications with that as well. Like, there is massive safety problems with this. And this is where we were discussing, actually, where's the ethics in what things are doing? And if it's not controlled or administered by a health team, and people in these studies are closely monitored, and that's what we've got to understand here. People in these studies have got health practitioners, healthcare professionals around them all the time, supporting them with some of this stuff. Now, Joe Blogg's going down the street and going, do you know what? I really fancy trying that Ozempic and like not being hungry. Because that's what, again, we talk about GLP-1, the receptor agonist. That's the thing that's shutting down that fucking response for eating, closing the garage door, as it were. So like, we have to understand, if you're a mum of 3, a busy working professional, you're running your own business, and you're already chronically tired and maybe fatigued, and there's some other issues going on as well, and you're nutrient deficient, now you're going to go and chuck something like Ozempic down your grid. And there's a whole host of issues and concerns with people doing that, because now, who's to say that you're not going to fall flat on your face when you walk out the door with your kids? Who's to say that you're going to be sat at the steering wheel on a 2-hour drive up the motorway to see the family, and you're like collapsing at your wheel. Like these are the things that people have to understand with the safety implications. We'll come on to that a little bit more.
Yeah.
So, Wegovy.
Wegovy just obviously was then designed by the same company. I think it's Novo Nordisk. Could be wrong. We'll see. But like, it doesn't really matter. It's Wegovy is the brand name, which was literally designed for one goal, because obviously Ozempic was not. It was designed for type 2 diabetes. Wegovy is now clinically to reduce body weight. It is still administered for type 2 diabetic patients. That's what it's for. But the Wegovy is now designed in terms of its structure and in its dosage to drive body weight down. Because type 2 diabetes, what we know about type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, all these things are because of your body weight. It's not because of the foods that you eat. It's not because of too much sugar. It is a factor of the quality of nutrition that you're putting in your body. But the biggest prevalence to having type 2 diabetes is being too big for the structure that you are. Okay. Yeah. You're just carrying about too much. The body can't handle it. Okay. Yeah. So if they drive weight down, you'll basically see a reverse of type 2 diabetes symptoms. Insulin resistance will improve. Weight, it will always improve just from getting the weight down. So Wegovy comes out. They run trials on this increasing dosage over months. So you start on a low dose, you increase the dosage, and the longitudinal studies over, like you say, 68 weeks showed a 15 to 20% drop in Wegovy. So even better results from increasing the dosage. But with more dosage comes more effects, more side effects, more risks, and the stuff that people are coming up with now is nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain. And there's loads of other risks that we'll talk about. But that's where Wegovy came in, and it was literally designed to get that weight down. And it does do a good job. It's effective. It is effective.
And again, we've got to look at it from that side, like and again, feelings, biases, emotions aside, it's effective. That's the key. It's effective at doing what it says on the tin. It's like Ronsil. It does what it says on the fucking tin. It gets weight loss down. Now, a key point to note with this as well, when we talk about that study prior, where we were discussing where Ozempic come from, like they had a big population of people that they tested this against, 1,900 people. That's not a small. And again, science has its flaws. Research has its issues. But as a weight loss option with the population they're dealing with, highly effective. The Ozempic study, the Wegovy study, again, 2.4 milligram once every week. Now, if you were to pull 2.4 milligram in a syringe and you saw what that looked like, it's again, you give your kids Calpol, you'll see what I mean. You're having that once every single week, and then the administration of that dose increases over time. The Wegovy study had 1,200 adults. So when Akos and I are discussing these things, it's very important that yes, these are studies which are potentially they're isolated to the level of people that they've had, test subject they've had in place, placebo groups, comparative groups, etc. But promising data nonetheless when it comes to those people that are chronically overweight, chronically obese, and have type 2 diabetes, when we're seeing people lose averages of anywhere from 9 to 14% of their overall body weight in that time frame of 68 weeks. So there's a lot to take away there, team. There's a lot to take away about what they are. Obviously, there is one more. And Mounjaro. This is obviously one of the bigger ones. And the reason this is the bigger one, because the population of individuals that have been studied for this was just that little bit more significant when we were looking at the research. And when we were looking at the research, Mounjaro came up. They had a study population of 2,600 people nearly. Now, that's a significant amount of people. Like, that's a lot of what you got to understand, that when we look about obesity and overweight, that's a lot of people that are in those categories. And again, they had similar effects, similar sort of study, the cohort and how it was administered, the process that we went through. a 5 milligram dose, a 10 milligram dose, a 15 milligram dose, produced certain weight loss averages over a 72-week period. Even comparatively, people that were administered it but weren't administered it as a placebo group saw effects and change, which brings up another topical conversation we're going to be discussing about placebo later on down the line. But again, a really, really, really significant consideration when we're talking about how all of these products literally shut off and close that garage door on that GLP-1 receptor. That fucker that's making you think about food, making you consider food, making and having those feelings of hunger. And, you know, what this product's doing is literally not even making you satiated, because you've got nothing to satiate yourself with. It is literally making you not think about food. And it's crazy what that does, right?
Unbelievable. I mean, the Mounjaro's come in now. It's now tirzepatide. It's not the same component. It's not semaglutide. It's now tirzepatide. Yeah. It's getting better results than Wegovy and semaglutide because it works on two receptors, not the GLP-1. It works on GIP as well. So because we're working on two receptors, so you've got the GLP drugs, you've got the GIP drugs, but they're now working on both receptors with tirzepatide. The results, like 20% more weight loss there, 20% or above weight loss over a 72-week period. It's crazy. A couple of things that I think people should know right now is when new drugs come out, they're sometimes released because of their results, with the risks that there's no long-term safety and efficiency. Okay, so Wegovy and Ozempic have a study, a meta-analysis and a systematic review to say that it's now safe, which means that they can remove this little black triangle that's on their drugs pointing downwards. And please have a look at this, people, because Mounjaro still has this little black triangle pointing down, which means it is still not clinically past safety and efficiency regulators to say we know the long-term effects. That it's literally we hold our hands up, we don't know the long-term effects of this drug. Is there pancreatitis? Is there pancreatic cancer? Is there gallbladder issues? What's the long-term issues of digestive discomfort? Is there leaky gut syndrome, intracellular, paracellular permeability issues? We don't know. It's not been around for long enough. However, the reason why it's passed and it's out there is because if you've got a population of people when they're clinically obese and type 2 diabetes, they've got a much higher risk of dying from that than they would the effects of these drugs. Yeah. So in the right application, it still makes sense to apply this to the certain people. Because if you're way overweight and you've got risk of heart attack and you've got this in your family, you've got that in your family, and you know that being type 2 diabetic increases your risk and it's a burden on the NHS and the cost, of course they're going to administer a drug to you that can get your weight down and solve most of those problems, you know? Of course.
And that's where the bigger picture comes in, isn't it? This is
massively.
This is part of the piece that we kind of wanted to get into the meat and potatoes of it. In that, are these drugs for everybody? And I think if you know Akos and I, you know our standpoint on this. You know exactly where we kind of lean into this, in agreement or not. Are these drugs for everybody? Absolutely not. And I think when we talk about
fights.
No fights yet. No fights yet. However, when we look at, well, if I just remove my bias and I remove where I'm at in this study, I remove where I'm at in the research that we've been reading in kind of, and if you want to dive deeper into that research, please do have a look at it. It's interesting stuff. Like when you look at the studies and the population that they've had, bear in mind, it's limited. There's not a lot of it. So we take on what we've been given. But that being said, if I'm talking to somebody or having a conversation with somebody who has all these biopsychosocial issues, they've got a really, really difficult home life, and their health is on the spectrum of killing them. And I mean literally to the point, and again, I don't come across a lot of these people, but if I were hypothetically to have these conversations, those people with those weight and health related issues could benefit from this acutely and longitudinally, potentially. And again, we don't know enough about the long-term effects, but could benefit from taking this if it improves their quality of life. And this is one of the things that I think we have to be cautious of on Instagram. No matter what pretentious high top little prick comes on fucking Instagram and starts giving him his posh twat conversation about whether or not Ozempic is right for people, regardless, or whether you are the classic Smith character, like whatever who you are, regardless of the influence that you're seeing online, understand that these people, they are just formulating an opinion based on what they know and what they've seen, and they're projecting it to their audience. If you fall into that audience category because you follow them, understand that if you are somebody with biopsychosocial issues, clinical health-related problems, it normally is met with some potentially, not normally, I should probably rephrase that, potentially met with some mental health or psychological problems as well, attached to the weight loss and the diabetes and other things that might be in that realm, then you're probably going to flash and see red when you see that type of content, because it's not geared towards a positive answer. This is why Akos and I have this podcast, to bring information to you to understand what does performance and health mean for you. Because if you're somebody who is 400 pounds and on the spectrum and on that, and I'm talking about being on that diving board of death, then this might be something that could perhaps reverse what that weight is doing to you. It won't reverse a lifetime of habits that you've created, and that's a discussion we'll have after. But when we discuss who this directly benefits, I really wanted to get that point across, because if people on Instagram just took a little bit of that opportune moment, pulled themselves back, reflect a little bit, actually, is this for Joanne and Kevin, who are a couple who are morbidly obese? They've had gastric or bariatric bypass surgery. They've got gastric bands fitted. They've got other health-related all-cause mortality issues, etc., etc. Could this work for them? Well, maybe this fucking could. And if it could, who are we to say whether or not that's changed somebody's life or not? So think about that on that fence. That's kind of the standpoint I'm bringing out there, Akos.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, a thing is, again, own your own outcomes, because if you're getting your information about a clinically clinically administered drug and a medically administered drug from social media or in a 90-second reel from Twatterson chatting about it, it's your fault. It's not their fault. They're going to talk about it because it's a prevalent subject and people want to talk about it. But if you're making decisions about who it's for, the outcomes and all of that from that, then you just please go and do your research. Go and research. Go and have a look at what it's doing for people that are, you can judge the people that, there's the whole argument that, is obesity a disease, or are people just lazy? Or do they lack discipline? We can go through that whole route, can't we? But we're not here to break that down today. We're here to talk about the fact that this was administered, and it is administered for people that could literally, all-cause mortality risk, could literally be at risk of a short-term life and a burden on the NHS. And the amount of millions that it costs the NHS, the obesity crisis that we're living in, if we can bring a drug in that can remove some of that crisis and that burden on National Health Service and all other health services in America, all sorts, it makes sense. We're not looking at acutely at whether it's right for Billy Bob or Billie Jean down the road. It's not about that.
Yeah,
and but then it comes down to,
it could just be that fast. It could just be for that person the fastest route to fat loss and weight loss. Could be. Yeah. But there are so many complications that then come with, well, actually, what have you done for the whole of your life up to that point. And that's the shit that actually we need to kind of consider, because if we're going to address, and again, there's a bit of conversation here actually that you've just started with the ethical considerations of this stuff. Like, two things I think we need to highlight here. I think coaches are responsible for what they say online. And we, as a industry, are in effect a gatekeeper to that information. People will come and look at people's Instagram. People will go and look at people. And listen, like, we can sit here and say all day long, don't go to Instagram for your fucking research, or don't go to Instagram. Use it as a crux to get to people and maybe understand where they're at, but understand that people that are giving you the information, it's normally coming from, and this in this topic, it's opinions, really. Yes, it's based on the data that we've seen, but a lot of it is opinions because we just don't know enough about it, I think. Although it has had positive effects, doesn't mean to say that it's right for Gen Pop. That's my kind of stance on, the bigger picture of who it's beneficial for.
It's opinions and it's entertainment, isn't it? Instagram. So it's entertainment as well. So don't get your information from entertainment avenues.
Yeah, exactly that. So let's kind of discuss, and we brought it up a little bit there, didn't we? That your missus, and again, my missus saw exactly the same thing.
Did she? Yeah.
And I remember what we said
same
before,
episode.
didn't we? She, probably. Yeah. I was like, she's been tickling about that bloody Ozempic thing. Where the hell's this come from? And we had the same conversation. Maybe like very briefly passing by a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about it, and we wanted to do this as a subject, but we wanted to get a little bit more on it before we started doing that. So the cost of this product is like exponentially wild, and like the cost of these can far outweigh any benefits of doing these substances and these products and these compounds. We're talking about people that online are wealthy people. Like, these are wealthy people. You're talking about people that are real estate agents that are online. We're talking about people that have been in and around estates like Miami and LA. And guess what's going to be there? All of the fucking wag tags and everybody in between that's rolling around in Rolls Royces and Bugattis and everything in between. Like, there's a lot of money there. So from the cost side of things, the implication with cost, you're looking, some of them anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 a month, which
I'm gonna correct you, my man. I'm gonna correct you.
I think that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money.
I'll tell you now, because I know.
Mounjaro.
Yeah, I've got a spreadsheet for you, my friend. And I did this research. Should have shared it with you.
I'm excited.
Ready?
Because the stuff that I've seen, anywhere from $800 to $2,000, that's a fucking expense for a lot of people.
Yeah, I'll tell you now. So I'll tell you now exactly. This is exactly where it is. Mounjaro, the strongest one with the best results, from 140 quid a month, ranging up to about 220 quid a month.
Jesus.
Yes, it's accessible, bro. It's scary, mate. It's scary. We wouldn't have a problem if it was 1,000 quid a month. We wouldn't have a problem. No one's affording that. It will be the Hollywood stars. Do what you like. Kill yourselves early. Whatever. Long-term effects. You ain't got a clue. You don't care. You want to look good for the next 6 months. Then Billy Bob and Billie Jean, they can afford it. They can afford it. They can stretch it. And I know this.
Yeah. The middle class can afford it.
I know this because I have an amazing client. She's probably listened to a podcast, and I know she won't mind me talking about her. I'm not going to tell her by name. But she's got polycystic ovary syndrome, and she works so hard, her results slow down. And she's had the meltdowns and gone, sod this shit, I'm going to get on this drug. And she's looked into it, and she's got all the prices from all the places. And I luckily got to her, and we had a chat, and we had a sit down, and we said, look, we're fine, we're good. But it's a really good into the female psyche and into the male psyche, whatever, how close you can be to thinking, I just need this magic pill, magic potion. I'm tired of the hard work, especially for people that have autoimmune disorders or metabolic disorders that do struggle. Don't get it as easy as, the people that you see online that stay in fantastic shape all year round and do struggle to get that little bit further. And it isn't. Yeah, mate. Yeah. And on top of that,
that's crazy, because when I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, okay, maybe from an accessibility standpoint, if you're doing, you're doing 2.4 mil a week, 2.4 milligrams per week,
yeah.
and looking at the cost of where semaglutide was and what the effects of that is, talking anywhere from $800 to $1,500 a month, there's a deterrent there, isn't there, to a degree? There is a deterrent.
Yeah. You'd be mad, wouldn't you?
100%. Like,
I'm saving 1,500 quid and just not eating. I'm doing it.
And that's
a sellotape over.
That's the point I'm trying to make, is that actually what we're doing there is, yes, there is a cost perceived initially, there's a cost deterrent based on this information you're saying. And this is why this is great conversation, because what I had looked at is some people spending $800 a month for 2.4 milligrams per week is $200 per week. Like, there's a little bit of a deterrent in that there is also going to be a little bit of bias towards buyer's bias, because there is going to be some placebo about why that thing might be working as well. And people want to work even more because they're paying more money for it. But now, with it being 150 to 250 or beyond, they're in and around that margin.
Around that margin, mate. That's on average. That's taking like 15 different pharmacies.
That's a decent gym membership at, like, wow.
Yeah.
Is what I'm fucking saying. That's absurd. That is absolutely mental. That is probably the same as your water bill.
Just my drinking water bill, mate. Let alone my water bottles, my Evians.
Wow. And do you know what, team? This is really good, actually, as well, because we're looking at stuff in two different spectrums. Akos and I didn't have a conversation about this stuff beforehand, so it's us having these chats now and looking.
Why are we going to talk about it beforehand? We want to chat whilst you are listening.
100%. Like, the point of this matter is that, looking at where people have sourced it over in the States, in some of these more wealthier regions, and I can only assume that in some of these more wealthier regions that these products might be administered a little bit more professionally, could be potentially some cost involved in that, but also could be a clinic, but also maybe some purity towards this product as well. So there are a few considerations with that, again, that we can talk about later on down the line, but it's frightening when you hear that, especially when you've spoken about, one of your people in your network having gone and outsourced the conversation with somebody about, where can I get Ozempic, where can I get Mounjaro, or where could I get...
It's just literally going to the private pharmacies as well. You literally just go on their websites, and without giving the people the way to do it today, it's not that hard to get hold of it, even if you don't meet the parameters of what you're supposed to get it. Yeah. It's not that hard.
And this is the point as well, right? The other thing in this is that there were some prerequisites before to this. Now, there's no holds barred. There's no restrictions. There's no limitations. But please, 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 please understand what we are about to say to you when it comes to two things when we discuss the future implications. And that's where we're going to go now, because I think it's so fucking important to discuss the fact that, yes, there is still ongoing clinical trials taking place with all of these substances, with all of these products. They're all being studied and studied and studied and studied. And I do want to come on to the conversation of, is this the modernization of the less invasive approaches to weight loss? Potentially. But the first thing I want to discuss is understanding that, like we spoke about when we did our podcast before on, again, compounds and everything in between, and we were talking about testosterone and all the other bits and bobs, like, there are abso-fucking-lutely health implications if you go and do this stuff. And it's the unknown that I think personally I couldn't, like, we don't know what the cancer risk is like on this stuff. We don't know what the gastrointestinal issues look like on this stuff. We don't know if there are demands on the cardiovascular respiratory system. We don't know if any already genetically predisposed medical conditions you already have are affected by these things. And this is the stuff that takes so long to get through before it becomes something which is shelf life stuff. And like, for me, that, like, we only have to go back 50 years, mate, and see that people used to tell people to smoke because that would help people for their health.
Yeah,
like,
crazy.
We only have to go back that far, and now we know.
Far.
Yeah, but again, that's what they knew at the time, what they thought was going to be a good thing. But actually, over the grand scheme, we know how bad smoking really is. And this is what we kind of need to understand. We can't be using this stuff like we're pulling out a cigarette end, or like we're having a weekly Sunday roast. That's not where this is at. And I really, really want to stress that, mate. And I think you and I both hold that same kind of. I think
anyone
principle.
That's listening to it and has thoughts about it, I think anyone that would take it right now, you need to know you're part of the experimental data.
Yeah.
You are part of the experimental data. They're using you to find out the long-term effects. They're going to study your effects and the risks and the implications and the correlations to certain things that they could correlate to, like the pancreatitis or pancreatic cancer. I'm not saying there's any link there. We don't know. We've said that about 4 or 5 times, but you are part of that experimental data for the FDA and all the rest to find out if there is a correlation. Do you want to be part of experimental data? That question mark. Simple as that.
There you go.
Okay.
And that's it. So let's dive into that next question around, like, is this, or could this be the future of weight loss? Could this be the route that people in those obese classes, and maybe even considering, that, again, when we look at BMI and BCMs and all the other bits and bobs that we know about, some of the tools and resources that clinicians use to assess people's weight and health, could there be some prerequisite narratives that are in there where, doctors maybe be going, right, okay, well, here's, as an example, here is some amoxicillin for an infection you've got. Well, you're overweight. Here is some bloody Ozempic or some Mounjaro or Wegovy. Here you go. This is what we think is appropriate for you. And like that, like as frightening as that might sound in the current era that we're in, could this be the future intervention of the modernization of how weight loss and fat loss industry is going? What's your thoughts?
Well, I think it's simple to answer with a post. Now, don't quote me, please, because I can't believe I'm doing this. But Daily Mail. What's your thoughts on the Daily Mail, mate? Because my clients love the Daily Mail.
I don't want to upset any of Akos's clients. Listen. All you need to know.
I hope she's listening.
All you need to know.
Because we've got a running joke about the Daily Mail as your resource.
All we need to know is that I have not watched the news in the past, I'm going to say at least 6 years.
Yeah,
and I've not read a paper in nearly a decade for all of those reasons. Because everything that's in there is 99% toxic and full of crap.
However, absolutely, I agree with you, mate. We align on so many things. I haven't watched the news, and I get my news updates from when my clients tell me, "Have you seen that?" And I'm like, "No, I don't watch the news. What's happened? If you want to tell me, tell me." However, Daily Mail Online with Keir Starmer, they are going to, Labour are planning on giving unemployed free Ozempic, the unemployed free Ozempic, as part of the obesity crisis. It's already happening, mate. So the answer is absolutely. It is the future of where we're going, because if you're unemployed and you're overweight and you want to lose a bit of weight, you'll get some free Ozempic with the new Labour government. I don't understand why employment comes into it.
Nor do I.
I'm not really sure how that
I was going to say exactly the same.
I've got a job, I'm not allowed it. But if you're... So
where does that become a prerequisite of this drug? And secondly, like, there's a few things we should probably steer clear of. And again, this is happening live, team. I feel like politics needs to be a conversation that's never had amongst anybody on a podcast. Fucking dangerous territory.
Yeah, absolutely. Not saying a word. Stopping there.
we're going to stop that conversation about any of the governmental parties that are in power right now, and just say that if you watch the YouTube video, you'll see mine and Akos and I's facial expressions about that. So we'll probably leave that one on that side. But that's interesting because, again, like, it's showing how much the mainstream media are streamlining this product to be a thing for unemployment and obesity, but then the complexities of the aftercare that come with this. And this is kind of where we need to go into, because I truly, truly don't believe that, and we spoke about this before, didn't we? When we compare this, the drug, to somebody who has lived their whole life with battles with obesity, battles with food consumption, battles with indulgences, battles with health, battles with lifestyle, battles with stress management, and everything in between. And then we give somebody this drug. We have not removed the lifestyle, dietary, or habitual limitations that they faced prior to them taking that drug. So when it comes back to the demands that these people still face, they still face an obscene amount of roadblocks ahead. And if they don't have the tools and resources to give them the right direction in life, it doesn't matter whether you've lost all that weight, because in effect, if you're not practicing exercise, and if we're not hitting some of the governmental daily recommended dosages of exercise, if we're not hitting 150 minutes per week, if, for example, we're not getting sunlight exposure, if we're not sleeping very well, or even if we're not consuming nutrient or some nutrient dense foods, these people have not ingrained these habits, and these people have not ingrained the skill sets and almost the tactical and technical knowledge to live life through healthy means. And that is the concern that I have. There is no comparison between do Ozempic and get a quick win, or do Wegovy, get Mounjaro, get a quick win and change your life. Although acutely it might help somebody, there absolutely has to be an aftercare or intracare program with this process. Because if not, we are still not answering the common fucking problems that people face in this world right now. And it's not having a ability to understand what delayed gratification is, understand that resilience, and understand that health, wellness, happiness all have to be worked for, and it cannot just be taken out through a drug. But alternatively, as coaches and in an industry, it's our fucking responsibility and our due diligence to make sure that anybody that's even remotely considering this in any way, shape, or form that we ever come into contact with is being presented all the information. Because if it's not met with both of those things, you're going to give somebody a drug, they're going to lose an insane amount of weight based on the studies we've seen comparatively, and then they're still going to be at square one, where their fucking insides are rotting inside out, literally, because they haven't built the foundational habits required to be able to sustain long-term health. That's my
absolutely. Well said, mate. Well said. I think, firstly, simple, I just like to put it into a nice little sentence, is it's basically putting a plaster on a broken leg. It's not doing anything more, isn't it? It's literally hoping a plaster holds that broken leg back. Exactly. It's not a long-term fix. I'd love to have a discussion with with the higher end of these people that are bringing these drugs out, and the FDA and all of that, and saying, do you see long-term effects from these drugs, or are we just focusing on the acute responses of getting people's weight down and getting them out of hospitals and, or into surgeries that they can't have because they're too overweight? The implications of not being able to do a certain surgery because they might not survive the surgery. So put them on Wegovy for 8 weeks, get their weight down. The long-term effects, we just don't know. Let's wait for the follow-up studies. We don't have the follow-up studies. We have a 72-week period, and then, okay, then what in 4 years' time, let's go back to these people. Where are they? Are they back to square one? I would hazard a guess they'll be back to square one.
Yeah, I agree.
We've put a plaster on a broken leg, and we have not challenged the fundamental problems that they were in the first place. We are giving people that are nutrient deficient because you're eating high amounts of processed food, high density foods, like not a lot of nutritious foods, and we're restricting even more nutrition. They're being even more nutrient deficient. Okay.
And this is under the assumption that we're dealing with somebody that has that life, right? Because we've already had the chat where you can be overweight clinically, but you could be very fucking healthy. You can exercise, you can train, you can eat very, very nutrient dense food, but you may just be more predisposed to having a healthier, heavier weight, for example. Like you can be that weight. You could be clinically overweight, but still be healthy. So
absolutely,
when you're saying what you're saying, it's like, it's frightening to think that there could be a reliance on this. And what we're not doing is we're not going to the cause, and we're not going into schools. We're not practicing outdoor education. We're not You only need to go and look at countries like Switzerland and what they're doing. Why are Switzerland arguably one of the healthiest countries on the planet? Why are people living longer in Switzerland? There has to be some relation and correlation. There has to be. Well, you only have to look at their schooling. You only have to look at the activities that they are not necessarily pushed in to go and have a crack at. They're kind of told to do. And the breaks that they take, the outdoor play that they have, the education that they have. Like, there's a big reason why that European culture is succeeding at the health and fitness game, or the health and wellness game. And they're succeeding because they're doing those things. We need to do more of that. We need to look at the grassroots of education and start helping people understand that health is not a body fat percentage. Under absolutely no fucking circumstances is health body fat percentage. But what we do need to do is health is about the behaviors that you invest in on a weekly, daily, reoccurring basis. Do those health related behaviors contribute to the bigger, wider effect of you living a happy, healthy life and being free of any medical conditions, being free of any all-cause mortality problems, being free of cancers, like health. That's what we need to be doing at the grassroots level. And I'm just so worried about it. So worried about that problem.
Well, you've got two scenarios here, haven't you? You've got the individual that is overweight and takes these drugs to get their weight down, and they're reducing their all-cause mortality risk acutely. But we don't know what their risk is long-term because the drugs haven't been long-term. So they're getting to this result. But then you've got another individual that stays with the same consumption that they are now, but boosts their step count to 6,000 to 8,000 steps. Okay. Ultimately, what that does is drive their weight down. But also what that does is a 6,000 to 8,000 steps over your lifetime reduces your risk of long-term all-cause mortality by 60%.
Staggering.
So it's crazy. There's not even a comparison there. Take Wegovy, lose a bit of weight, acute responses to all-cause mortality removed. But just do some walking. Just be active and reduce your long-term risk by 60%. Which one are you taking? Like, if anyone picks the Wegovy route, it's crazy. Yeah. Unless you're in that position, unless you're the right person, which is what the drug's designed for, you're in a bad way. We need to intervene, and let's get this acute response sorted, and then let's work on these long-term factors. That's why you said we need to talk about the long term, the long game. What's the process after you take? Like, no one said that. What happens when you stop taking this drug? Yeah. Are you going to take it forever?
And why is it us having the conversations around, like, do we think society are going to become reliant on these medications? And with that in mind, what might those long-term effects be? Why are we sat here having that conversation about that now, Well, it's because it's a mark on where society is. Society wants that, for some reason wants that. So people are choosing that as an option. And it's blowing my mind, because I'm sat here going, okay, that's all well and good, but do you not want to be able to get on a bike with your child? Or do you not want to be able to just go for a walk through the countryside and go down to the lakes with your kids and have a fucking bit of fun time, a bit of dad and daughter time, or mum and daughter time, or family time, or whatever that? Do you not want to be able to stand up for longer than 10 minutes and be able to grill some barbecue food and all sit down in a cross-leg position on a picnic mat, play some badminton, and just have a fucking great... Do you not want to be able to do that? And the long-term associated health-related behaviors that come with that can't be done with something which is, yes, health promoting, but doesn't necessarily mean it promotes health. And I heard one statement which absolutely changed the game for me, is that these things might be health promoting, but are they actually promoting health? And then the second effect of that is, we actually don't have a problem with the amount of knowledge that we have. Like being able to get knowledge now more than ever is unbelievable. The problem we have is application of knowledge. And that's where the dangers come in, because somebody's seen some studies, gone, oh my God, this works. Oh my God, this works. And the application of that knowledge is the short form, because they haven't thought about, actually, with all this power comes great responsibility. Yes, this is health promoting, but actually, is it doing and promoting long-term health? And they're the messages that we're in. So again, Kish Dharma's come in and gone, do you know what? We'll stick a plaster on that broken leg. And we actually won't go to the grassroots problem. We won't invest money in schools. We won't invest money in health-related programs. We won't invest money in outdoor education programs to get kids more involved in fucking kayaking, climbing, mountain biking, mountaineering, caving, whatever those things might be. We won't invest money in that, because here's a short-term effect to an acute problem that we've got in this game. Fuck it, we'll fix all this drama over here before we go anywhere else. But that's not just a Keir Starmerism, mate. That's a fucking worldwide problem. But it seems as though some of the European countries, and probably more actually, are not willing to put the plaster on the broken leg. And they are willing to go, okay, it's health promote, but how does it actually promote health? They're asking those questions. And that's, if I had an opportunity to stand in front of any government official that at that level, I'd fucking ask them the questions. I'm like, do you actually care about this, or are you just worried about that paycheck?
Yeah. I think the question that I had on my group, actually, when I put up that we were going to do this subject was, and I asked people, do they think this will finally solve the obesity pandemic or the obesity crisis?
What a question.
No one said yes. I think 2 people actually, out of the amount of people that replied, said, and this is on honest feedback from people that, you know, that I coach, people that are interested in health and fitness, they can't see this being the game changer to obesity. They can't see it. We've had it before. We've had other drugs come before this. We've had things. Okay, this is a massive leap forward, a huge leap forward, but there's not a lot of confidence out there to say that this is going to be a long-term solver over obesity. Yeah. I'd love to, again, see what happens in 10 years. I'd love to be able to rewind this and go, where are we? Is this obesity pandemic done because of a Wegovy and Mounjaro, etc.? Well, does it just relieve a little bit of tension on the parties to solve a big problem with the NHS and the numbers of people coming through, etc., etc.?
It's a real shame. And again, in 10 years' time, we'll still be here, so we'll be fucking talking about it, I'm sure.
Slightly greyer beards. A few more crow's feet around the eyes, maybe.
Yeah.
We'll have advancements on that, mate. Biotin everywhere or something, isn't it? That would be fine.
Yeah. Well, and again, for anybody listening to this podcast, my wife is a little bit of a fucking geek when it comes to everything to do with skincare and dermatology and all the other stuff. She loves that stuff. So she's given Akos and I a little bit of advice about our crow's feet that we've currently got going on. So we're on an experimental phase at the moment. We'll let you know how we get on.
Yeah, we'll update you on another podcast.
Yeah.
I think what I wanted to bring up
Sorry,
mate. I think what I wanted to bring up at this point was, which we haven't talked about, is who it's not for. And we've talked about who it is for, but like now, I think that where you talked about your wife and my wife mentioning it and how it's mainstream and it's getting out there now. Like, there's access to it. There is, it's not hard to get it if you even want to go to a private pharmacy and get it. There's ways of getting it done, and there's even underground. You know, it's in the bodybuilding world. Can you believe it or not? It's in the bodybuilding world being synthesized for bodybuilders that can't get to that last bit of leanness or struggle with, you know, these hunger responses in satiety. It's out there and it's going to be abused. And I must stress that if you are just an individual that wants a quick fix and just wants to lose a bit of weight, this is not the route. And I would put this down as ask you a question as this is replacing gastric band surgery. Okay, this is replacing very evasive, you know, responses to getting people's weight down because they are going to be in trouble. Yeah. So if you're going to take Wegovy or Mounjaro and you're not clinically obese or in that position, would you consider a gastric band surgery? If you're not considering a gastric band surgery, you shouldn't be considering this drug just because you can bang it in with a little needle and away you go. And I think that's what I want to talk about. And I can't believe it's even allowed to be on, like, and sounds like an old man ranting now. The ranters, the double ranters, the ranter bros. But I can't believe there's like Hollywood stars talking about it. Like, just take it. Like, it doesn't matter. Just lose some weight. And there's, you know, reality TV stars that are just taking it day in, day out for just to lose a bit of weight. They're not even overweight. They're not even overweight.
The funny thing that comes with when we talk about reality TV stars, Hollywood TV stars, and the comparison that we can draw with the people that we work with and anybody that's listening to this podcast, like, you need to understand that the demands placed on them and the pressures placed on them to look a certain way from one shoot, one TV show, one recording to the next, and the access that they have to blood panels, the access they have to healthcare and clinicians goes far above and beyond where probably a lot of us are right now. And I think you're fucking absolutely right on them. Like, if you are not considering gastric surgery in any way, shape or form, this isn't for you. This is not, and to be fair, I'm just going to say it. I do not condone this to anyone at all. Even if you are somebody who is on the line of potentially fighting for your health and your life, I will give up my free time to get you to a place where you are absolutely thriving just through. And again, I say that I would give up my time to get you to a place where you are thriving, you're happy, you're healthy, and you are back to a position. It will take a lot fucking longer. Of course it will. But the health-related behaviors and habits that you will take on board, the resilience that you will build, the lifestyle that you will have, the enjoyment that you will get, the friendships that you will build, and the network that you will have after you've been through that process will be long enduring and will far outweigh any short-term fix over a 10, 15, 20-week period.
Fact. The reward you'll get. Reward you'll get. I mean, you get given a degree, but here's this BSc, you've just passed it. You didn't do any work. You didn't pass it. You just turned up and you got there's no reward there. You don't really believe you've done that, you know? Same with this weight loss drug. You don't have any reward. You jab a pen in, you lose a bit of weight. There's no reward to that. You don't feel great about yourself. You've lost a bit of weight. You do it yourself. You do it the hard route. You do it with support, like Dean's saying, and you improve metabolic markers. You improve your health. You thrive. You feel great. You have lots of energy, and it's such a great reward.
Yeah,
but it's not an easy process for everyone. We know that, don't we?
We agree. We absolutely agree. So, team,
boom.
we hope that you've taken away some key points here. But the point being is that Ozempic and Wegovy, understand where they were designed from, where they kind of were curated and brought about. Again, we can talk about Mounjaro, but the whole process around where they've come from, and understand what we've just been discussing about the bigger picture and the ethics around these type of products, and whether or not they are the modernization in the future of where the fat loss industry. We don't know enough, but Akos and I can, without question and certainty, say right now that it is not something that we condone collectively. It's not something that we recommend you do at all. And if you are genuinely sat on the fence and you're so worried about where you're going to go with your, just pick up the phone or message one of us, and we will do everything in our power to give you all of the support that you need to get in the position that you should be in. Because what we don't want people to do, and again, this isn't like a free-for-all, open up, come and work with Akos and Dean for nothing. That's not what this is about. Like, we've got families to look after, etc., etc. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is that we will give up our time to make sure people are supported and people are helped. That's what we're about, because we would both take off our last t-shirt in a cold, wet storm to make sure that people who are in our network and friends in our network are warm and dry. That's the type of people we are. So understand that if you are struggling with weight, obesity, health-related weight issues, this drug might be promising in the future. It might be a game changer, but it will never, ever, ever replace what we stand for when it comes to a healthy, well-lived, physically fit, psychologically well lifestyle. Like, it will never replace those things. And we encourage you to completely fucking disregard anything that we've said, if you need to, on this podcast, and go and seek some medical advice if this is anything that you are considering. Because there are a whole host of things with getting your bloods done, speaking to your doctors, etc. This is not medical advice. Rest assured, this is all about opinion. It's what we're seeing hot in the press, and hopefully this has given you a little bit of insight and food for thought going into your weekend. But Akos,
well
any
said, my
thoughts,
beautifully bearded brother. You've said it perfectly, mate.
Perfect.
You said it perfectly.
We will see you. We will see you. This is a big one. We'll see you on episode 50. 50. This is going to be a clanger. I can't fucking wait for episode 50 to come out. Again, from Akos and I, if you've listened to this podcast, we really would love it and appreciate if you could share it. If you've watched this on YouTube, like it, leave us a comment. Let us know, please, what you think. It's a big plea. We want this to go far and wide. And we want to help as many people as we possibly can, because we actually, guess what? Love helping people, believe it or not. Like, that's what we came in to do. Trust me, if we didn't help people, we would not still be doing this nearly 20 years later. Rest assured.
No chance.
So please do support the podcast. Every little helps. It really, really does. But episode 50, stay tuned. And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode of the Art of Performance podcast. Peace out, team.
Peace out.